welcome everybody. This is our first public health and safety meeting of the year, and I'm happy to serve as chair. Mona Elshak serves as our vice chair. Thank you, Mona. And Bob Weisford is our member. And I thought I would just say a couple words by way of introduction, since we now have a broader mandate for this committee. This, of course, used to be the Public Safety Committee and is now Public Health and Safety. And President Udrich spoke to this at the reorganization meeting, and I think we're able to broaden our work because of the work of the previous committee. So the Public Safety Committee, under the leadership of Gigi Tebel-Makved, her work together with Mayor Deutsch, together with the longest-serving members of the council, including Bob Weisford and President Udrich, have put in place our terrific chief of police, and we now have a professionalized police force. So in some ways there's less work for this committee to do in terms of overseeing the police work. We continue to have an oversight role, and of course the committee serves as the kind of purse, we control the purse strings. But I think we're at a point in the evolution of the borough where this committee can take on additional work beyond simply the oversight of police and fire. And so in President Udrich's remarks, he spoke to public health, and I think the obvious connection to public health here in our work is climate change. Public health has been declared climate change has been declared a public health emergency by the American Medical Association. And their #1 recommendation is to reduce carbon emissions. So I see that as a public health project. But there are other public health projects that we could take on as well. And part of what we'll do, I think towards the end of our time, is brainstorm possible ways we can address public health goals. But I guess I would just say that my view of public health is very long-term, so over generations, that rather than just deciding on public safety decisions for the moment, we would consider the public safety of future generations, the public health of future generations. So I'm hoping that we can keep those considerations in mind when we're making budgeting decisions, when we're considering police and fire decisions as well. So we changed the time of our committee because, well, the members could only meet now, but I know this was inconvenient for the fire chief. So he wasn't able to make this meeting. I appreciate that you're here at this hour, Chief.
Glad to be here.
But I think Fran Dixon is very willing to work with us, and we will coordinate schedules as needed. But this is the time that works best for us, and so we're going to, I think, stick with this for the year. Okay, so we're going to first do, I guess, walk through our staff updates, and then we'll go to our list of discussion items. So could we hear first from the chief?
Certainly, and I wish the new Public Safety and Health Committee nothing but the best in terms of luck. We were very proud to work along with the previous Public Safety Committee for as long as we did, and we certainly wish each you collectively and individually the best of luck in your endeavors and interest for the community. And thank you to the chairperson for giving us the opportunity to even be invited to the meeting. We love that we're able to network and make sure that the police department is always in the forefront of everyone's mind, along with public safety, and the mayor's support always is constantly there. So the one thing I'd like to say before I begin about the status and command report, all the information that I give is non-law enforcement sensitive information, just so all the members of the committee understand that. Anything that is law enforcement sensitive, if I get a question and I can't answer it on camera, I'll certainly let you know politely and mannerly and professionally. However, there are different things that will come up at different times during your year that sometimes go into a gray area that we can't necessarily discuss. So believe me, it has nothing to do with being rude or impolite. It's just there's certain things that we cannot discuss. In particular when it comes to officer safety. things that we do. So, but with that in mind, the report that I have given you is a status of command report. It is generated each and every month, beginning with your first meeting, and it basically is an overview of training, personnel, equipment, and other important information that's necessary. It's a good snapshot of what the department exactly has on hand at this time. So to begin, I just want to discuss personnel. Right now we have 6 full-time sworn employees. Sworn employees are police officers. Our non-sworn employees are our parking controller and our school crossing guards. So of the 6 sworn full-time employees, we have 1 chief and 5 officers. The non-sworn employees, which are our parking controller and 3 school crossing guards. One of those school crossing guards is only fill-in at this time. That has been a tremendous assistance from us. We certainly appreciate the approval of doing that from Borough Council because it has been a seamless fit for us, and we're really able to cover the ground we need to cover, not only at the Marion Elementary School, but also at St. Margaret's as well. And I really have to give a shout out to, and I'd like to mention him by name, Charlie Bode. Charlie Bode, all of our school crossing guards do a great job, but Charlie Bode has been there for us at the drop of a hat when we get, notifications that the school crossing guards, for whatever reason, can't make it. So we're very appreciative of Charlie doing that. The next thing I'd like to move on to is fleet. Right now we have 5 vehicles, and one of them is our parking controller vehicle. That is somewhat dated. We have some capital improvement discussions that we had. Sean and I are always on the same page. We communicate constantly. The professional staff, Matt and I, as the mayor, we're always on the same page. The one thing that we have to look at in terms of the parking controller's vehicle is, number one, it is woefully outdated. Number two, it's just unnecessary for us to have that big of a vehicle in the borough. It's just not practical. Our parking controller, Robin, does not carry that much in terms of equipment. So we can certainly look at a more affordable option, something that's better on fuel, that's going to be more fuel efficient for us, and it's more conducive to our needs in the borough, and something that's really just less big. And just to let everybody know, that is in fact a 2004 Chevy Impala, so it is woefully outdated.
Does it have antique tags on it?
It does. It does. Yes. Or we're in the process of getting that. Thank you, Matt, for pointing that out. Our other vehicles, we have a SUV, which is a 2013, and we also have a Crown Victoria, which is a 2010, and another Crown Victoria, which is a 2011. The Crown Victorias are okay for now. They're in pretty decent shape, even though their age is somewhat old. But however, just to kind of summarize and close this out, I don't want to take up too much time for the committee. We are going to have to, at some point in time, look and have a further robust discussion about what we're going to do with the vehicles. However, at the same time, please keep in mind that one of the things we always have to do is we always have to make sure that the officers are safe. So the vehicle must be able to take a high rear end impact, because that is one of the biggest challenges that we have in law enforcement across this entire country, is the disabilities and injuries that result from auto accidents that are police related. So we always have to be aware of that. Moving on to our certifications, our 2020 first aid, CPR, and AED is scheduled for all police officers. The first one went on January 27th, and it will go throughout the year. That should be 2020. Our 2020 legal updates and firearms, scheduled for all police officers, will start and commence on February the 10th, and that will go throughout the year. As we move down to other trainings and certifications, I am currently named as the Interim Emergency Management Coordinator. Officer Kelly Lynn serves as the Training and Certification Officer for the Narberth Police Department, as well as the Clean Officer. The good news is that we just went through a clean audit on January 31st, Friday. We passed. There is some work that we have to do, but our clean is not under any threat of being revoked, as we're, for a while, everybody in this room knows that's been here for a while that the clean was, in fact, at one point in time, prior to my arrival, hit with a revocation standard, and the officers did not have that tool, which the officers simply cannot operate without. The next thing I left in there from a previous, status report was, I'd like to let everybody know in the committee that we are now investigating in the Narberth Police Department lower level felonies and misdemeanors. We do not outsource that now any longer to Lower Merion Police Department. Lower Merion Police Department has been a tremendous partner for us. They have given us a lot of training. They have grouped up with us to do a lot of different things. One of them is investigations, but they are confident in the leadership and our ability and the quality of our police officers that we now have in place, that they feel that they can certainly relinquish some of these things back to us. We now have possession of those things. They are going to help us along the way if we ever have a question, which they've already done. They've been tremendous in terms of assistance. And if we feel that we have a job that is just beyond our scope, we would certainly give that to Lower Merion, and they would certainly work along with us and give us assistance in any way. But we are now directly communicating with the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office to make sure that jobs are brought to the forefront and they are brought to a hearing. The criminal complaints are done. So this is definitely great for professional development for the officers, and we are really proud that we are moving in this direction. Also, the one thing I would like to mention about non-sworn employees, in order for a risk management concern to be minimized for the borough, risk liability, it's always good for all of your police employees, whether sworn or non-sworn, to make sure that they have AED, CPR, and first aid training. So I'm proud to announce that on January 21st, with the assistance of Sean Metrick and Matt West and Delaware Valley Trust, which is our work comp insurance provider, that we now have our non-sworn employees as AED, CPR certified along with first aid. So we're very proud to make that announcement. And it also is tremendous just in case our school crossing guards have any teachers or any students that have any serious medical issues, and we can render that assistance. So those things are very beneficial. The last part is equipment. We have 3 MDTs, mobile data terminals, computers for the vehicles. 1 is getting an upgrade, 2 are functional right now. And I would like to mention, back up to the top to the fleet, that one of our vehicles is currently under repair, getting some electronics done. That is 3697, our 2010 Ford Crown Victoria. And our tasers are operational. I'll just keep this very vanilla, very broad-based. Our tasers are operational, but they are dated, and we have some allocated funds in the budget to purchase new tasers, because we're going to have to do that. However, at the same time, I want to just make sure that we kind of keep this above board. If we have any further questions about that, any members, feel free to come and see me privately. The last thing I'd like to say is, again, Clean and NCIC are operational, and I'd like to announce that we have a new liaison for the Pennsylvania State Police as our Clean person, and that is Trooper Charles Wood, and he came here for our audit on Friday, and we'd like to thank him for his help. And that's my presentation. If anybody has any questions or any concerns, please feel free to give it to me.
Thank you, Chief. We will follow up on the EMC discussion as part of our agenda today, and we appreciate you taking on that role on a temporary basis.
Certainly. Glad to do it.
And I'm thinking that we should probably have a discussion about fleet renewal at some point this year. That might be part of this committee's work.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe developing a plan. Okay, so thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned, the fire chief couldn't be here tonight, but we've asked both the police chief and the fire chief to, if the reports could be filed and made available through the monthly business packet. And that way, these reports will be available to the public. Okay, so I guess we're going to move on to items for discussion. Sean, was there anything that you wanted to say by way of updates on the bridge, or any of the public safety updates? The redo of the bridge is complete?
Yeah, that happened on Monday this week. We got a break in the weather. We were able to do that, and Ed and his crew were able to reconfigure the bridge according to the recommendations from the traffic engineer that council approved back in November. So we were stuck a little bit with weather and getting some materials in, but we've got the new configuration operational.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
If I may say, I've already started to receive compliments from the public on they were very pleased with the updates to the bridge. They found it much more user-friendly and easier to use. So.
Yeah, and I'm also impressed with the flexible bollards. I mean, that could be used in other applications. So it's a good way to test that out for the bike lane. Okay, and also the crossing, we had comments about the crossing on, I guess it's East Wynwood. And that pedestrian crossing seems to be in place now. The lines are painted. It's up to Lower Merion, but I've seen the lines painted now.
Yes.
Okay. So those were two concerns I had heard from the community, so I wanted to address those. So, okay, borough codification. I think this is Sean or Matt.
I'm going to hand that off to Matt just to let us know where we are in the process and remind everyone what comes next.
Yeah.
Great. We don't have a lengthy discussion, maybe about 25 minutes. Kidding. There was a what? You all received an email from me about the codification project. I just wanted to put it on all of our committee meeting agendas this month, just to keep it in the forefront that you'll be asked to vote to approve an ordinance, to advertise the ordinance at the business meeting in 2 weeks. And if you haven't already, look over the email that I sent you explaining all of the changes that are being made. It's just a cleanup and reorganization of our current code, and it's really a sight to behold. And if you have a chance, stop by the office and take a look at it. We've had one council member do that already. It really is exciting. I know at Nerd Alert, geeking out about code, but it really is an important function of all of our roles. So when you get a chance, stop by, take a look. I'm quite proud of it.
My question is the document that's in the office different than the one that's posted online on the county website?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so we haven't made it public. It won't be public until council actually approves that it happens. And so in order to see the document now, you actually have to physically come in and look at the code. Chapters are renamed, reorganized, all of the, close to 200 uncodified ordinances from 1985 have been codified, reorganized, updated. It really is a handsome piece of work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met with our project manager just to put a coda on it, with general code that we're comfortable now on how it's going to be managed going forward. So we understand the process of amending, revisiting, recodifying, so the borough never has to get back in a situation again where it's catching up on years of uncodified ordinance. So it's very simple, and we're pleased to know how it works, and we're really excited about the partnership. So the same clean, usable code is going to be, experience will be available through our partnership online with General Code, as well as the written docs. We'll have 5 hard copies of the code that we'll update when we get our updates to the code.
So how often will the code be recodified? Is that a quarterly?
We're going to do
activity
it
or
twice a
annual?
year based upon our volume, but we have discretion to change the frequency of the update.
Okay. So twice a year.
So can you just clarify the timeline? So you're saying the council needs to approve the...
Council needs to needs to authorize us advertising for the ordinance. We're going to be doing that in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then the following business meeting, a month later in March, is where council will vote to adopt the new code in one fell swoop, replacing it as is.
And then after that March meeting, the code would then go online?
Yes.
And be more easily accessible
Yes.
to all of us?
Yes, online, hard copy. And I also wanted to say that just because we're completing this project doesn't mean the code is in good standing.
Mm-hmm.
You will have your work cut out for you.
Right.
I think just about every chapter needs to be revisited and arguably redone. There's a lot of things in there that are outdated still, and I just say that as an encouragement for council. It might be worthwhile going through and prioritizing which chapters need to be updated first.
Mm-hmm.
Parking certainly comes to light, trash ordinance, a lot of these things.
Okay, so that I guess will be part of our committee. Probably all the committees will want to
Yes.
do that. But we could look at the ordinance related to public health and safety and triage, which need our attention
Sure.
most. So we could do that more easily once it becomes online, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, I really want the focus right now to be on the adoption process. I want council to get comfortable with it, to see what those changes are, the different chapter numbers, and really be, deliberate in the adoption process, and didn't want to rush it through, taking 3 months to adopt it. I think that's a good approach.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I know that's been a tremendous amount of work.
3 years. Not that I was counting.
So thank you.
I must have taken a lot of caffeine.
Yes. Leave it at that.
Okay, so the next item is the Emergency Management Coordinator, and this is something that I see as a top priority for our committee this year. And as I said earlier, very grateful to the chief for stepping in while we identify someone to take on the role more permanently. So I thought what we could discuss now with the help of Matt and Sean is kind of a timeline and a process for how we could, in a reasonable timeline, within the next 6 months, say, put someone into a permanent position there.
Yeah, we have a candidate in mind, and I've had that first conversation with that person who wants to explore a little bit more about the training that would be required to go into mastering the skills. I explained to the person that it would be a 2-year training process, and they would be supported in the interim. That person's very interested in doing it, and I'd like to talk with council if you want to tonight in executive session a little bit more about who I'm talking about, since it's a personnel matter, and what our plans are and some of the variables that are going on in the moment. But I'm hopeful that we can kind of close the deal, so to speak, and be able to do this short of that 6-month time frame.
Okay, great. And Chief, you're comfortable in occupying this role until we make that?
Sure, I have no problem with that at all. I mean, we really haven't had any incidents that require such response. I said, but if it does, I'm certainly confident in the training that I have in my background during my career with National Incident Management System, Incident Command System, multiple levels, and experience in those areas, and my experience with Homeland Security as a commanding officer. So I certainly have no reservations about that at all. And actually, I really look forward to working with the permanent person. I really want to make sure that our officers are partnering with that person. And one thing I would like to give a shout out to is Dave Wurtzel and Holly Bond-Farrell, who did a great job with the communication tree and also with the continuity plan, as well as the overall plan itself. I've reviewed, I've done, I've crafted, I've created many of these different things in different capacities over the years during my career, and even serving as the crisis management coordinator for a private organization. So I can tell you that the borough should be very grateful to them. They did a tremendous job and really did it at no cost and volunteered their countless hours to do that. Because if you ever get a chance to look at the document, some heartfelt effort was put into it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both of them. Okay, so it sounds like tonight we might be able to discuss that in executive session.
Yeah, I know we were meeting on some other matters, but we could certainly add that to our session.
Yeah, I would really love to see us move on that as quickly as we could. And I'm sure you agree with me.
Right, and I've had some ongoing conversations with the chief and Sean in terms of what works for the borough in terms of the police force and what may make the most sense. So hopefully this will all come together in short order.
Okay, good.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Can I ask now? So one quick question is just, and thank you again for acting as our interim emergency management coordinator. Has that been, this is a question for anyone, has that been sent to the governor? I mean, I'm just wondering, because I know when I looked on the website, David Wurtzel, my husband's name is still on there. So I'm just wondering in terms of if something happened tomorrow,
Right.
How does that work with the, has the state
And that's a
been
great question.
notified?
You know, and that probably
Is there
requires
something we need
some,
to do?
that probably requires some warranted discussion. However, at the same time, I think that we would be more than capable to respond to certain emergencies. There's other things that we're going to require some training. We're not up to snuff. The one thing that's actually been neglected in this community probably for a long time is emergency preparedness, that type of response. As far as I know, my name, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, has not been submitted to
Correct.
the
It
state.
has not.
Yeah.
And is there any liability that having Dave's name kind of certified to the governor is Dave incurring any personal or professional liability for being named and not acting as it? Because if emergency happened, we would act on it.
Right.
Without his help, we would all hands on deck.
Yeah.
We would be here.
Mm-hmm.
I guess is your concern more that
I'm just
there would be an expectation of Dave.
I'm just wondering if there are any
Because he's
steps
been
we need to take for having the interim one. I mean,
I think
know he submitted his formal letter of resignation, so.
Yeah. I think absolutely, and I've had conversations with discussion, in fact, about submitting that resignation, and when he did, because I know his obligations otherwise were just too challenging. With that in mind, I think that we probably really should, look to submitting the interim's name until, and obviously letting the state know that we're in process to name permanent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have another question for you, but are you going to be in executive session, or should I ask the question now for you?
I'm sorry.
Are you going to be in executive session later when we discuss emergency management coordinator, or are you?
Oh, as long as I'm invited,
Is
sure.
that, I don't know,
That
is that, would he
yeah.
be in?
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because then I can save my question for you.
Okay.
Or actually, no, I guess I should ask it publicly. What, in your experience working with emergency management coordinators in the past, what's your understanding of their role, not only in working with a team, developing an action plan and implementing it, but what is your understanding of their role in terms of at the time of an emergency? So.
Well, I think that that's where Mona, the training really comes in for an emergency management coordinator. As Sean is mentioning out, there's a certain certification process that's got to go through. It's got to be robust. Your name's got to be, obviously, as we're discussing now, submitted to the state. Just kind of repeating some of this. But the one thing that's really important is the emergency management coordinator understands the 4 foundations of the incident command system, which is administration and training, finance and operations, logistics, personnel, all those things. Am I confident that right now, if we had a situation, could I respond and put those foundations into place in terms of an outer perimeter, an inner perimeter, a command post, immediate catch area, to make sure a communications car is established, make sure a chronology log is kept, and risk exposure is minimized for the borough as much as possible?
Okay.
Absolutely. The challenge that we have with an emergency management coordinator serving as basically exactly that, a coordinator, has got to be someone who's going to be in here in the operations center, really giving us the resources and the equipment and the tools that we need out there in the field. God forbid, I use this example a lot as an active shooter if it happens in the borough. Myself, my officers, my team are going to have to be at that location coordinating with other law enforcement agencies. It would be very challenging for me to actually serve in that role because, it's such a small organization. And I'll use Lower Merion as an example. The superintendent at that location serves as the emergency management coordinator, but he has multiple nuanced layers of management and supervision underneath him, where he can afford to actually, entrust certain decisions to them at the location. Not that he wouldn't be there knowing how he is. However, at the same time, it's just a big organization. A smaller organization like ours requires me to be really at the eye of the storm.
Right. Oh, no,
Yeah.
I'm not questioning that at all. I think we have a small police department, and that makes perfect sense. I'm new at this, so this is why I'm asking you. You're an expert in emergency.
I don't know. There's many people that are experts. I just consider myself battle tested. That's all.
You're battle tested. So I'm just wondering, because my understanding, which could be completely wrong, and this is something I'm interested in researching, is the emergency management coordinator, not if it's you, but whoever it is, are they expected to be coordinating operations that day, or are they just supposed to set up the plan ahead of time? That's my question. But if you don't know.
Well, no, it's fine. Well, I think the one thing that we have to take into consideration is that we actually have to basically ratify, really look, review, finalize the plan that we want in place for our borough. Now, if you look in our police operations, we have many old plans. They're outdated, that are considered emergency response. The one that Dave did, the one that Holly did, is much more robust, much more contemporary. It's a better guide for us to use. In addition to that, I think there's a certain amount of training that must happen with emergency preparedness. Like the one thing that our officers are probably limited in right now is incident response system, incident command system, ICS. We'll probably have to get them more layers of that type of response. Now, our officers are trained in rapid deployment, tactics, any of the trainings that we have with that are provided from Lower Merion. We're confident that we can respond. However, at the same time, when it comes to emergency management itself, the officers, as well as there's always ongoing training. I think the one important thing to really take into consideration when we get an emergency management coordinator in here, we have to run tabletop exercises to see where everybody falls into place.
Right.
Your police operations, your fire operations, public works, communication. Ed's been talking about crisis communications in the time of emergency since he's been here, and rightfully so. Those things are going to have to be basically unpacked, fleshed out at a tabletop exercise, and you should probably run at least 2 tabletop exercises, in my opinion, annually. One really regarding maybe a fire situation or explosion, and another one that's more police related. There's state coordinators that can come down and run us. They can assess us. There's private organizations that can do that. But however, it's really great training for us to go through, in order to get, and that's what I call it. Really, what you're doing is you're graduating along the ladder of emergency preparedness. So there's certain levels of ICS that you're going to hit that are required under the National Incident Management System, emergency response. Those things, to me, Mona, would be important if I was the EMC in permanent capacity. The ongoing training piece, make sure that things are updated. Things in emergency preparedness are constantly training. But I would like to mention, though, before I suck up too much of the oxygen in the room, is that we've already taken steps to really make sure that we're getting information in real time. And what we have is we have liaisons with the Delaware Valley Intelligence Center. The Delaware Valley Intelligence Center is a law enforcement fusion center. There's about 80 across the entire country. There's 3 right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, 1 in Philadelphia, which is the Delaware Valley Intelligence Center. We now have our own liaisons there, and we are connected to that, and we participate in what's known as DIVIC roundtables. So we're already kind of connected and getting information in real time. And I'll give you an example. Say that there's something that happens in the borough of Sellersville, or the borough of Swarthmore. Well, we would get that information in real time. It would get sent to us because the Delaware Valley Intelligence Center would put it right out to us. And we could basically benchmark and see if there's any concerns for us in the borough, in Narberth, that are similar to that of Swarthmore. So those are the things that are important, to really have those communication lines open in law enforcement amongst public safety. The best thing about Delaware Valley Intelligence Center is that the partnership is not only government, but is also private. So it involves secure. There's so many different sources of information. So I'm glad that we are connected to that pipeline, and I think that's a huge piece. The emergency management coordinator, that's why I would like to work closely with that person. I would like to bring that person into the DIVIC roundtables, bring them down to the DIVIC meetings, get them exposed to have an on-site visit down at that location, and offer that, because I think it really gives a broader understanding of how you can pull a lot of resources from the collar counties and bring them into your community to help with, God forbid, say something should happen like a train derailment in the borough of Narberth. So there's a lot of resources out there that can be pulled not only statewide, but also federally into your community to help make the community whole after a disaster.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. And we can talk more in
Sure,
executive
sure.
session.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I hope that helped.
Yes, thank you for everything you do to keep us all safe. Thank you.
So we do have a full agenda, so I'm going to try to move us
Sorry.
quickly through what we have left, because we want to be done in about 20 minutes. Part of what we're doing here is just kind of laying out an agenda for the committee for the year. So we're in a way previewing and trying to understand the timeline of our work.
Right.
So property inspections is the next item. And this is something that would build on the work of public safety last year. The council was able to pass ordinances that set standards for health and safety in rental properties. So one goal could be to establish some sort of inspection schedule involving our Kevin Walsh. We may want to get to a point where we invite Kevin to one of these meetings. But I know that in talking with Matt and Sean, this will take some time and it will take resources. That's just how inspections work. So if there's a way that we could focus on kind of a subset of properties that we might want to inspect, properties that we consider, high density, highly used, we could come up with some sort of criteria. And those could be properties that maybe we start with on a kind of trial basis. This is something that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if, Sean, if you would want to say a little bit about how the committee could be helpful in that kind of, in setting up some sort of inspection schedule or working towards inspections this year.
Yeah, I think that's on our radar to accomplish this year as well. Working off a list of high-value locations that you're talking about, places of assembly, places where children gather, places where adults gather, churches, daycares, schools, movie theaters, are all places in higher, taller buildings, are all places that should be looked at because they pose potential risk. And it would just be looking at those locations for fire, health, and safety code improvements. Are there the right amount of ways to exit the building? Are the crash bars located? Do they work? Can you get out? Are they the right width and size? And just verifying that we've met the minimum standard in those kinds of locations. Just to keep in mind, like if we're talking about schools and daycares, those are already being inspected for those things. So this is kind of a belt and suspenders approach for those kinds of operations. But looking at some other locations that would fit that bill, we need to identify them, put them on a regular list of inspection, and send Kevin out to see them. And Kevin is our building code official who is certified to inspect for, according to the Universal Construction Code, the fire code. He's also the borough's code enforcement officer and the zoning officer. We contract with those services with Yerkes Associates, and there actually is another person now from Yerkes assisting with lower level code enforcement violations to kind of free up Kevin's workflow, because that piece of our operations has grown. So there's also some, I'm keeping an eye on that because there's also some potential there to think about what's in the best interest of the borough and how can we efficiently deliver those services now that we've grown our third-party services to the point where we're paying basically, we're paying more than it would cost to employ someone full-time to do those services. Now, we're very happy with where we're at, but and there are pros and cons to bringing somebody in from the outside. They're not going to have all the certifications and skills that an organization can have, where they can draw on separate individuals who have the right certifications to do the inspections that need to be done. So there's advantages to working with an organization, but there's also advantages to having somebody in-house as well. So I'm starting to think about that as well.
Okay.
But the bigger piece that we're looking kind of further down the horizon, I think, is going to take more time, and that's a registration and permitting program for commercial properties. We're still a ways away from thinking about that. We are thinking about that, but I think we're still a ways away from making that a priority, unless council wants to
move it up the list.
shift things around.
But for now, a reasonable goal for 2020 could be to establish a inspection schedule for high-value properties.
Yes, absolutely.
And that we could have a registry of those properties and a schedule.
Can I ask, would those inspections include whether the temperature in the buildings are warm enough or kept within a certain range so that heating and air conditioning units are used appropriately? Would something like that be part of it?
I don't I don't know. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I don't think we're going to be identifying residential units in this universe,
Okay.
which makes me think that's more what your question is
Yeah.
targeting.
Yeah, just to make sure, landlords are
Yeah.
maintaining, safe standards for heating and cooling
Yeah.
of the units.
I see that as something maybe we could address from the bigger,
So
the bigger push.
So that would be, when we get to registration and permitting, that would be maybe a year from now, or, that'll take a bit more time, but we want to get there.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we have in the code is we have the standards for health and safety, and
Yes.
but now we want to establish the inspection routine. Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to hasten to say that if for people who are vulnerable, who are in homes that don't have heat, and the landlord's being negligent, they have protection under our laws now. We did put legislation in place that protects those people, and it does subject those properties to inspection if there's a concern or complaint. I think what I do hear in the community though is a desire to have permitting and licensing and inspection. Kind of what Sean was going kind of about registration and permitting process for residential dwellings, commercial residential dwellings, like the larger multifamily properties. My understanding from being on public safety maybe 6 or 7 years ago when Aaron was the chair is that the fire marshal or the fire, that they were being inspected by the fire marshal annually. And does that continue to happen so that, means of egress and operational sprinklers and those kinds of things, if the basic requirements were being checked already by the fire department at the larger condominium buildings, the larger apartment buildings, the does that continue to happen?
It's not happening right now.
Okay, so that was.
Okay.
I don't think it was happening back then.
That
either.
wasn't happening then, but there was a definite intent to put that kind of inspection in place. But I think then that further we want to see licensing and inspection of the multi-family residential buildings.
Right, for me, that becomes a safety issue.
Yeah.
It becomes a safety.
And that's just like, we just have to look at that in light of the other things that we consider priorities to do in the borough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just to,
I think we
to
all want to
repeat
do
what
that.
Sean just said.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. Next maybe we could talk about the greenhouse gas inventory, and we could put that together with the Drive Forward grant. So these are the EAC initiatives that now fall under this committee, and in talking to Jesse Lytle, chair of EAC, they're in a position now to start reporting out the greenhouse gas inventory. They've been collecting data with the Temple intern during the fall, and so I would like to invite the EAC, specifically Rob Schlag, to our next meeting, to our March meeting, to share some of the data on carbon emissions from the borough. If the committee is agreeable, I would like to see some of that data presented publicly. And then over the course of the spring, as part of the ICLEI grant that we were awarded through the DEP, the intern will help us in developing a climate action plan to reduce carbon emissions. So the first step is establishing the baseline data, and I would like to propose that we host some sort of community forum later in the spring that I would be happy to facilitate, where we would share this data more publicly with the wider community and seek input on a climate action goal, so that we could develop a plan. And I think all this would fall under this committee. That at the EAC's recommendation, this committee could then put to council a climate action plan sometime this summer. So that would be the kind of timeline of things. And then we would be in a position to make use of the funds that were set aside in the 2020 budget for the EAC budget line. So that's kind of the timeline. If we can have a climate action plan in the summer, we could still make use of the monies that have been budgeted. So is the committee agreeable to inviting a representative from the EAC?
I'm good with that. I think we should pick a date for the event.
Okay.
And rather than maybe do it, I'm amenable to do it however you want to, but maybe instead of having it come to a committee, maybe why don't we just have the event
Okay.
and pick a separate
Have them
date?
introduce it to the whole,
Yeah.
as a town hall?
Yeah, or however.
Yeah.
Well,
We could do it that way.
however you want to structure it,
Sure.
but as a separate event.
Sure, we could have more than one town hall,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm fine with either.
Okay. So I'll talk to Jesse, see if we could pick a date for March, and it could be a public event some evening. Okay. So related to carbon reduction, the Drive Forward grant is the opportunity that we have through the DEP to apply for vouchers for electric car charging stations. And I talked through the timeline of this earlier with Sean today. So I think we have a plan. Over the next 2 weeks, I would like to coordinate with the EAC and answer any last questions that Cindy may have as chair of FNA, Sean may have, Ed may have as Public Works Director. And then at the next council meeting, we could have a kind of proposal, and that proposal would include a request from NIDA for matching funds. It would include possibly an amendment to the capital improvement plan.
The capital plan and budget as well as the operating budget.
Right. And so I can work on Sean with this, but the timeline for applying for these vouchers, which can cover a significant portion of the cost, is it's on a rolling basis, so that these vouchers could be they could expire, I don't know, and at any moment, as soon as there's a certain number, like 700 vouchers available to PA municipalities. And so if we're in a position to apply for these in March, after our next council meeting, assuming that the council approves of what's proposed, then we could go ahead and apply for the vouchers. We could go ahead and make a request of NIDA. So that seems like a better timeline than trying to... Originally I was thinking we might have to ask for a vote today, but I think we can wait because the vouchers are good for 6 months and NIDA meets in May, so the timing would work out.
How many stations were you anticipating?
Well, the EAC had recommended 3 stations originally, but then they and Ed met with the electrician and the representative of the company that sells the charging station itself. And the estimates came in much higher than we expected. So now the EAC recommended 2 stations instead of 3. One could possibly be behind Borough Hall. Another could be somewhere in the business district. Depending on, we want to consult with the businesses to find the best location. But the idea would be to attract people to the business district, because it would be findable, through apps and things. And then the one behind Borough Hall could also serve borough municipal needs, should we have electric vehicles. So, but my thought is I could kind of package this together, share it with the committee over the next 2 weeks in coordination with Sean, and then at the next meeting we would share it with the council to ask for a vote. Does that sound reasonable?
But, and just to clarify, at this point, our hope is that this could be revenue neutral for the borough if NIDA is willing and able to give money.
That's right.
And if it's not, we don't have to spend the money. We could make the decision then whether we want to move forward or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So even if we were awarded the voucher from the DEP, we could still not install the stations because we didn't get the matching funds from NIDA, So,
Thanks.
okay. So we just have a couple minutes. I wonder maybe we could, Matt was very generous doing a GIS tutorial for a few of us a couple weeks ago. And maybe we can return to that later. I'm just saying that's like it would be hard for me to explain what you do, Matt.
Understood.
It's very complicated. But Matt is a resource to this committee in that sense that he has this GIS expertise, and there may be ways that he can report data to us in support of decision making. So we just want to be aware of that. Okay, so just briefly, this last item came to us from a couple neighbors when there was a demolition on Dudley, and there was not notification of neighbors. So this was just something I wanted to raise. I don't know if there's something that can be done in a case like this. This was a house demolition.
Yeah, I think that what we need to do is just modify our forms and our process and assign it so that it gets done. Two things I want to stress about this. This has been in place for a while, and we did notify for other demolitions. And really the notification of demolition is really just that such and such permit has been applied for on this property. It's not going to tell anybody receiving the notice when the demolition is going to occur. We sent letters out in 2016 saying 198 Elmwood Church was to be demolished. And there's really no way to know exactly what day it's going to happen, and there's really no way to communicate that date effectively to the near neighbors who might be most affected by it, because sometimes our building code official gets 24, 48 hours notice before activities commence, and he may find out on a Thursday that they're coming back on Monday, to start, or he might find out on a Tuesday they're starting on Thursday. So that's the best we can do, is let people know who live on the block and are contiguous to the property. And I think that's a pretty decent geography to focus on, that an application has been made. And we should focus just on complete teardowns. I don't want to make it about someone is tearing their mudroom off and building an addition. I don't think that's really what we're interested in doing. Just so you know, too, just so in the public knows, there is nothing under our UCC or codes that require public notice of demolition. But we can legislate this if we want to. It remains right now an administrative matter, and all we need to do is just tighten up a couple knots and make sure that when it comes into the office, it's identified and the letters go out to the right people, and the right person is coordinating that activity.
Okay, great. So that's something you can do already.
I actually just moved to our committee, or maybe to the council, that we just ask for council and public notification at the soonest meeting after the submission of the permit application. I know this isn't required by law, but it is something that council had asked for previously, and would just be so that it happens. Just
So
application comes in for demolition of a significant building, and when it's approved, that the council and the public get notification of that at the very next public meeting.
Okay, that public announcement be made by the manager.
In addition to
No,
the
that would
notice?
be the notice.
Well, that is the notice.
That would be the notification.
Oh.
That's what that. Unless you're suggesting that the near neighbors be notified specifically
With a letter or something?
Well, it could be both then, but
I
I think when we were concerned about tear downs over the years, we've asked specifically that like any time a tear down happens, whether it's whatever it is, that the council be and the public be notified at a public meeting. And I think that may not have happened this time. I don't know if the neighbors were notified or not, but why not do both?
As
That's what I mean.
someone who works right next door to a building that's about to be torn down, and in terms of working, it would be helpful for those who live and work in buildings immediately surrounding the area to be aware so we can adjust our schedules and our business and affect our lives so that they get the least disrupted by the process. Just gives residents and businesses the opportunity to adjust our schedules accordingly. Yeah.
You never know, it might be relevant information for someone who's not in your neighborhood to know that a building's coming down, and that's why I would suggest both methods.
Okay.
Notification.
Is that doable? Sean? Okay. Well, thank you. All right, so the last item, we just have a minute or two, but I don't know, Mayor or anyone in the committee, if we want to add additional goals for the year, especially in terms of public health, because public health is a new focus. So if there are any additional ideas that you have, feel free to, we can discuss them now or over the, at a later point, but I do want to be open to any ideas.
I don't have anything concrete right now, but I'm open to ideas that increased public health and welfare, and I'll keep thinking about initiatives and things that we can do together.
Okay, good. You're good? Okay.
Sounds like
Bob,
we're
did you want to add
schedule
anything?
right now.
No.
In terms of goals at this point?
I was hoping we could have a longer discussion, so this isn't the time.
We can do it later.
Suppose we brainstorm offline and bring those ideas back
Okay,
at this next meeting?
let's do that.
Just because we're sort of now in.
Right, we just have a couple minutes between meetings, so. Okay, well, thank you all. We'll conclude this meeting.